Got a lot of ground to cover on the first edition of the Inter Miami Weekly Show here in 2024, a world tour in the preseason, a new sponsorship, and a look ahead to the beginning of the MLS regular season and Champions Cup. It's a lot of ground to cover, new signings, all of it here on the Inter Miami Weekly Show. It is so great to be back here in 2024 on the Inter Miami Weekly Show with Kieran Gibbs, Arsenal legend, Inter Miami player. I'm less important. I'm Joe Malfa, your host for this season. But, Kieran, it's been a few years of this club's existence. I'm going into my fourth year involved with the club. There's not been this level of hype going into a season. Maybe going into the second half of last year with all the signings, but the hype is at a maximum level going into 2024, and rightfully so.
Oh, definitely. I mean, how can you complain? Look at what the club has achieved over the last, even just the last year. I feel that, we had a little peak of excitement midway through the season last year. We've allowed time for it to settle, and now it's, time for kind of like the real deal. Everyone's settled, clean slate, new faces, and new goals. I'm super excited.
Absolutely. And you go from that Leagues Cup run, that little taste that you mentioned, it just kind of abruptly happened, right? Mid-June, the rumblings about Messi start, and then it happens, the signings announced, and then the unveil in July, and then the Leagues Cup, and that run to the title, and then, of course, sure, injuries set in, came back down, as you mentioned. We might have 60 games of that peak this year, that excitement. That's the expectation now from these fans in the stadium behind us that added more seats here for 2024 to contain all of that fever. It's something that we probably haven't seen in MLS in its history. There's been glimpses of it throughout. Zlatan Ibrahimovic when he came over, but never a crew like this assembled going into a season that we have now with Messi, with Alba, with Busquets, with Luis Suarez, who we'll talk about later in the show as well, the big ticket signing of this past offseason. Of course, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack, and we start to unpack it all for you here today. You could go anywhere with this, but what are you most excited about for 2024?
Well, I think, listen, I'm excited for definitely the new signings again. I think, the addition of Suarez, Gressel, a couple of academy graduates, which is great to see again. I'm excited to see that. To be honest, we should just appreciate what the club have managed to achieve in terms of like getting these players here and just enjoy watching them play. We don't know how long it's going to last. They still look fit and healthy. But we have a great manager, and what we would like to do is, keep expectation low, but at the same time, be very excited about what could possibly happen. Good
luck telling these fans to keep their expectations low going into 2024. And one of the new big things this year as well is a partnership with Royal Caribbean. It was announced in the offseason. The team had a really big event on one of the cruise ships, a partnership that is going to be on the kits, on the LED boards. It's going to be out in the communities, the Togetherness Kit that was introduced this year. 2 languages, 2 counties, 2 cities, all together in one heartbeat here. The freedom to dream for the club is higher than it's ever been, and that partnership with Royal Caribbean just helps take it to a new level. And Kieran, you've been there, different clubs, different sponsorships. How great is it to be a part of that community and get in the community with 2 companies like this, just continuing to grow the relationships with the base of fans?
Well, first of all, how good does the kit look?
Incredible.
The kit looks amazing. I think it's such a powerful looking kit, and it's 2 powerful brands colliding together. Like you say, I think the biggest word to use there is community. They've both vowed to engage with the community, and that's what we want to see. We want to see these big influential brands really doing what they can to get the best out of fan engagement and giving back to the community. So hopefully it's the start of a fruitful, healthy relationship between the 2 brands. I think it's a great look.
And we got to see it all in full action on the World Tour, which took place in the preseason for Inter Miami. It saw a trip to El Salvador, a trip to Dallas, and then, of course, Saudi Arabia and Hong Kong and Japan before finally culminating back at home, over 24,000 miles. An incredible, historic offseason for the club. You've been a part of something like this in your past, whether it's with Arsenal or on these Asian World Tours. A lot goes into it. It's a historic venture for the club.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have to congratulate the club first and foremost, right? Because, it's uncharted territory for any MLS club. What an amazing achievement, and it's so great that the club are always striving to reach new heights, and not just for the club itself, but for the league also. So I think that was amazing, and listen, what an experience it must have been. I've done a couple of Asia tours, and to really experience like firsthand, just how passionate these fans are. It must have been so amazing for the staff and the players. They would have been in places that they've never been to before in the world, experience new cultures. It must have been incredible. So also for team spirit, camaraderie. You've got new signings, and to have an experience like that together, traveling to different regions of the world, will only benefit the boys from a camaraderie standpoint. So a good success in that respect for the club.
And you had what you wanted. The last game of the preseason, the match this past week against Newell's Old Boys, was probably their best performance overall. Started off really strong. You can argue that maybe with one swap, it was 10 of their starting 11 that you'd likely see in the opener against Real Salt Lake, and Messi was doing Messi things, especially early on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would have been a fairy tale, that goal, a classic Messi goal.
And then this free kick as well, missed it just whiskers away from that save post. And it was great to see in stadium. You've got the red and black of the Newell's supporters. You've got the pink and black of the Inter Miami supporters. And every time Messi was involved, everybody was cheering in unison, standing up in unison. I don't think the Newell's fans would have cared down at that end of the field if he scored on their club, because he is them. His career starts there. Tata Martino's career starts there, and it wasn't without some opportunities the other way for Newell's, especially to begin the second half. Drake Callender came up big. Then it started to really be a case of Inter Miami pushing the envelope near the hour mark. Another near miss for Messi. He'd come off 2 minutes later. He'd be subbed off for Schneider Borgelin, and Borgelin made it pay off in the 64th minute.
Yeah, and Schneider's also, another key player to look at this year, because he didn't feature that much last year, but he affected quite a lot of games that he appeared in, and you can see that again here. He still remains with the same focus and hunger, and he's such a big boy. His physical presence is too much for most defenders, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of him this year.
And then the mistake at the end here, Ryan Saylor, a little miscommunication with loss in Sunderland on the back pass. John Motta initially lost it here, and then it was just a 1v1 with Drake Callender. But Kieran, at some point in a game like this, Newell's only started 3 or 4 of their regulars because they're in the midst of their season, but late they brought on all their regulars. Flip side, Inter Miami started all the regulars and then took them off for some of the reserves. The game sort of became disjointed, finished 1-1. But while the starters were all in, the most positive 60 or so minutes I think we've seen from them all preseason long.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was a real structure. There was an organisation. There was good patterns of play. Messi and co were definitely creating many chances up the top, and they were unfortunate not to be 2 or 3 up, I think, in the first half. So you can definitely see the team coming together, and obviously towards the end of pre-season, everyone's half looking at the start of the season now. So it's all of those little teething problems that Tata will want to get out of the team ready for the start of the season.
And one of the problems, if you will, from the preseason was some of the injuries they encountered. Facundo Farias, the team announced, would be out for the season. Benja Kramaski, a couple of months away after what they call a sports hernia. Sergio Busquets picked up an ankle late on. There's no timetable for him, but they believe it's near term. So in light of those injuries, some other players would have to step up. Diego Gomez, one of them, who has taken that role on the left wing in lieu of Facundo Farias. He's a player very early in his career who, when he arrived, he was a 6, he was an 8, and then all of a sudden he goes with the Paraguay Olympic team. They win their pre-Olympic tournament. They qualify for the Olympics with Argentina. And oh, by the way, he's all of a sudden their leading goal scorer, which is not something we necessarily knew that Diego Gomez had in his bag of tricks. And now he's on that left wing position. What do you make of him in that new role and what he can bring to the table as well?
Well, you know what? I thought he was really effective in the middle of the park last year. You could see he has like bundles of energy, loves to get around and break up play. And the fact that he's versatile is only a credit to the club. So I would have to see more of him in those wide areas to really know. But obviously, listen, Farias is such a big loss for me. I really enjoyed watching him last year. I thought he was brilliant when he came in. That we have bundles of players in those positions. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, who steps up to take the spot. The one thing I will say is that, you know, they had so many injuries last year and we had to see, you know, a plethora of youth come through and really step up. I think that, you know, a lot of the boys will have seen that last year and know that their chance can come at any time. So what Tata has to do is reinforce that everyone needs to be ready just to step in case needed, because you never know when you're going to get your chance. You know, we've seen 2 graduates come through this year, I think Boatwright and Tyler Hall. So, you know, they will have looked at last season and said, okay, I need to be ready at any point to be called upon. So, you know, that's what I think the team could have learned a lot from last year and just be ready again this year. The injuries are unfortunate, but you're going to have a hungry pack of a hungry squad to be ready to step in.
And we'll dive into some of those academy graduates and new signees in just a few moments. But first, Tata Martino, after the match against Newell's Old Boys, summed up the preseason for Inter Miami.
Vamos más a salir ilesos de la pretemporada, de que el plantel relativamente venga sano. En ese sentido, debo decir que probablemente producto del cansancio y del recorrido, el único que tuvo un problema mínimo fue Sergi Christophe. Incluso lo de Busquets fue una fricción que le produjo un entorsi, pero que si el campeonato hubiese empezado esta noche hubiera podido jugar. Leo se recuperó bien de la inflamación que tuvo en el aductor, así que entiendo que hemos cumplido con las necesidades también que el club tenía y hemos trabajado en función al comienzo de liga a partir de nuestro regreso y después de una recuperación que los futbolistas necesitaban. Así que tengo muchas expectativas de llegar, no sé si todavía con plantel completo, pero sí de llegar bien al inicio de la competencia.
Been very open toward the end of this preseason in his press conference. Tata Martino just honest about the assessment of the preseason that was and looking ahead at some of the goals for 2024. Didn't mince words. They want to win Champions Cup. They want to defend their Leagues Cup title. They want to obviously finish as high as possible in the league table as well. All goals on the mind of the head coach. And as you start shifting gears, Kieran, how easy or difficult is it to now flip that switch from games that matter but don't count in the preseason to games that obviously count and matter going into the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, whichever way you want to look at it, it's a completely different world when you're actually going out there to compete on all fronts. You know, it's a different animal. I think what Tata's done is he's been quite clever. He's trying to manage it's a fine line between expectation and realism, you know, and so it's not as easy just to say that, you know, because we have Messi and co, that we're just going to go and win everything.
Be nice.
Football doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Yeah. So I think he's been really clever there. He's also, you know, trying to manage the expectation of all of the other players, right? There's, you know, still a really young squad. You have kind of a squad of players at either ends of their careers. You have a bunch of young players coming through, and then you have, you know, players that have seasoned veterans that have been there. He's trying to manage that expectation. I think it's realistic to definitely say that they will want to lift a trophy for sure, but of course, you know, to go and win the MLS is not an easy thing to do. You know, he has a big squad of really good players competing on all fronts. I'm excited to go.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the big squad. It's going to be necessary. If you sit down and do the math between Champions Cup, regular season, potentially U.S. Open Cup, MLS Cup playoffs, the whole lot, Leagues Cup as well, all told, they could play up to 60 matches between February 21st, when the regular season kicks off, and December something. I don't remember the date of MLS Cup final yet, but it's sometime in December. So between February and December, you could play up to 60 matches. And because of that, you mentioned Tyler Hall, Israel Boatwright, two guys who graduated from the academy, playing mostly with the MLS Next Pro side, who impressed enough to sign with the first team. Those are some names to remember. They could be this year's David Ruiz, Ben Hakramaski, having their impacts felt at some point. But some of the bigger ticket signings, quote-unquote, you mentioned before, and we're going to get there on the pronunciation. Nicolas Ferreira coming over on loan for the season from Pumas in Liga MX. Also sometime last fall with Olympiacos over in Europe, played in Europa League. He's won trophies. He's been there. He's done that. He made a Champions Cup final with Pumas against Seattle Sounders in 2022, locking him in on the back line, perhaps next to Tomas Aviles in a back four. How vital is that to the success of the team this year?
Oh, it's crucial. It's crucial. I think, set pieces is definitely something that Tata is going to want to improve from last season. I think they conceded too many goals from set pieces, and then just those little bits of lapsing concentration. I don't think it was, huge disorganization from the team. I think that they were just small incidents, too many errors close together that leads to a goal. And so that's what he'll want to bring down, and you hope that a player like Nicolas Ferreira will minimize that.
Better. We'll get there. By the time we get to week 3, we'll be there fully. This one's a little easier to say. Julian Gressel coming over as well. Had just won another MLS Cup with Columbus Crew this past season. He's got multiple MLS Cup victories in his past. He's been a winner everywhere, an MLS lifer. He's been outstanding. U.S. men's national team, capped a couple of times now. And he's a player, Kieran, that you could pencil in anywhere, whether it's on the right side, on the back line, whether it's playing as a 6, whether it's playing in a more advanced role as we saw in the friendly against Newell's. He's a utility player, but he's not a case of jack of all trades, master of none. He's pretty darn good at every single thing he's able to do. How important is a guy like this, knowing that, again, up to 60 games, you can slot him in anywhere and have success?
Absolutely. Listen, his experience is evident to see. And I like his energy. I like him out wide. I liked him out wide in preseason. I thought, he provided a lot of energy down that right wing. And versatility, like you say, is key. You never know what's going to happen throughout the season, and every team needs those kind of players. So a really shrewd bit of business from the club. I'm happy they brought him in. Now
the biggest, of course, of the names, Luis Suarez. It's the 4th of the 4, and
needs no introduction.
Completes the puzzle, needs no introduction. You know what he can do. You know what he's done in his past. You know what he still was doing at Grêmio in Brazil this past year. One of the top goal scorers in the league, still called in every single time with Uruguay as they build up toward Copa America. And now he looks fit. All words out of camp is that he is fit. Knees are feeling healthy. What can he do to this league? You know what he can do, obviously, goal scoring, but also as a distributor atop the lines. What is the ceiling for Luis Suarez this year in MLS?
Well, I mean, listen, first of all, I was lucky or unlucky enough to play against Luis a couple of times. And, he's one of the most prolific, devastating strikers that we've seen in the game over the last, over a decade. His skill, his power, his strength, his intelligence, to know where his defenders are, know where the goal is of the highest level. So he was born to do it. He was a born goal scorer. I think he can have a big impact this year. Obviously, he's going to have to have changed his game slightly over the years, but that's not to say that he can't have a huge impact on this team this year. If you can get him linking up with the players around him, he's always going to score goals. And if you supply a player like Luis Suarez, you're going to give oppositions a lot of problems. So, keeping him fit is going to be key this year. Managing his load is going to be like one of probably Tata's biggest things for the fitness staff and everyone around him in the club day in, day out. But yeah, if you can get the most out of him, he's going to be an excellent goal scorer in this league.
And not just for Luis Suarez, what it does for Leo Campana, extending the roster. He's still there as well, whether it's in a 2-striker look, whether it's coming off the bench for a half hour or starting matches to manage Luis Suarez' load. And now you have Suarez coming in off the bench as a super sub for a half hour. The options are plenty for Tata Martino.
Yeah, and that's it. You want different options in the team, and that's what it looks like it can give. He's obviously tried a back three at times, and I like the idea of a 2 up top as well. So there's many different ways that they can go about it. you know, you have Olympics coming up this year. You have other different competitions where players are going to have to leave and come and go. So it's important that all of those players in and around it are ready, because I feel like it's going to be a squad effort this year.
And it all begins Wednesday, the 21st, against Real Salt Lake. Expectations for the season opener. I know it's been a difficult couple of weeks of travel, of matches of 24,000 miles around the globe. You come in, you have a really strong showing on this field in your final preseason game against Newell's. Now it's the real thing on Wednesday. What are your expectations for the opener? And it's a 2-match week, don't forget. After Wednesday, they go cross-country to take on LA Galaxy on Sunday. So I guess I'll broaden that to say, what are your expectations for match week 1, not only match day 1?
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they've travelled so much, because they should be used to it after this week. But it's important to, you know, not get too disappointed or too excited after the first game, because there's such a long way to go. So I think that's why I think that Tata, you know, tried to curb the expectation a little bit, and just let the boys go and enjoy themselves and play and enjoy just being back out there. And I'm expecting a win.
Players are all excited to get back out on the field. We were excited to get back here on the stage for you all, and we'll be here every single week of the 2024 season on the Inter Miami Weekly Show on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, like, join it all so you can get notified when the episodes come out each week, all season long. The Inter Miami Weekly Show.